Before we get started, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. This journey we're about to take is a long one, a real deep dive, and hitting that button means you won't miss a single part of the story. I'm always curious. 2. Drop a comment below. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Alright, let's get into it. Your eyes open to a darkness so complete it feels solid. This isn't the gentle gloom of a modern bedroom, with the glow of a charger or the distant hum of a streetlight bleeding through the curtains. This is the dark of a deep cave, of a closed fist. The kind of dark where you can't see your own hand an inch from your face. You only know it's there because you can feel the cold ache in your knuckles. Your name is Edwin. You are 28 years old. In the world you live in that makes you solidly middle-aged. An old hand. You don't think of it that way, of course. You think of yourself as getting on. Your father died at 32 from a fever that came on like a storm and took him just as fast. Your mother is still drawing breath at 41, which makes her practically ancient in the village of Ashford. People from settlements a day's walk away sometimes come just to catch a glimpse of her. This woman who has, against every conceivable odd, cheated the Reaper for over 4 decades. The first thing that registers before sight or coherent thought is the cold. It has teeth. It has seeped into the very marrow of the cottage, into the packed earth floor, into the scant pile of straw that serves as your bed, into the rough-spun wool blanket. More whole than fabric, that does a pathetic job of covering your legs. It lives in your bones, a constant, dull companion. A warmer pressure against your back is your wife, Agnes. Her body, curled tight against yours, is the single source of heat in this entire one-room world. Your 2 children are lumps somewhere in the gloom to your left. Your ancient mother wheezes softly in the far corner. Your wife's brother, his own wife, and their 2 squirming kids take up the other half of the room. And somewhere in the inky blackness, from the direction of the door, comes the wet, rhythmic snoring of the family pig. You can smell him, a rich, earthy, animal smell, before you can see anything else. Actually, scratch that. You can smell everything. The smoke from last night's feeble fire still hangs thick in the air because there's no chimney. Just a sad hole in the mossy thatch roof that seems to trap more smoke than it releases. There's the sour, ripe tang of 8 bodies that haven't known a proper wash in months. The pungent richness of animal dung from the pig and the 2 scrawny chickens roosting somewhere above. The musty, damp scent of rotting straw and timber. This symphony of stench is home. It is every morning of your life. Somewhere outside, a rooster who fancies himself a prophet crows, ragged and insistent. The church bell hasn't sounded yet, but the rooster is rarely wrong. Dawn is coming. Dawn means work. Dawn has always meant and will always mean work. Getting up is a negotiation with a body that feels like it's been used as a battlefield. Your back screams a familiar protest. It's been screaming since you were 6 years old and first set to pulling stones from a field. The years of labor have settled into your spine like layers of sediment, each one heavier than the last. Your knees pop and grind like millstones as you shift your weight. Your fingers, stiff and swollen, refuse to straighten fully. Your left shoulder hasn't felt right since last harvest, when you lifted a sack of grain the wrong way and felt something deep inside give a sickening slide. But pain is just part of the deal. Pain means you made it through another night. Pain means you're still breathing, still capable of the work that keeps the hunger at bay for one more day. Pain you can handle. What you can't handle is the hollow, twisting knot in your gut. Your stomach is already clenching, empty and angry. Last night's supper, if you could grace it with such a title, was a thin pottage of boiled cabbage and some ancient, leathery beans, watered down to make it stretch for all 8 mouths. No meat. There hasn't been meat in weeks. The last time you tasted it was at Michaelmas, when the lord of the manor, Sir Richard, slaughtered a pig and doled out stringy portions to the villagers who had sweated the hardest bringing in his harvest. You got a piece about the size of your palm. The fat ran down your chin and you savored every glorious, greasy second of it. That was 3 months ago. The memory is a cruel ghost. You push yourself up from the straw, moving with the care of a man navigating broken glass, trying not to disturb Agnes. She works just as hard as you do. Harder, maybe, because her work has no clear beginning or end. She's up before you most days, coaxing the embers back to life, kneading the tough dough for the day's bread, tending to the children, mending, hauling, worrying. And she's pregnant again. For months along, her belly just beginning to curve beneath her worn smock. You try not to think about what that means. You try very hard not to remember the 2 tiny graves in the churchyard, the ones for the babies who never took a full breath. The floor is packed earth, cold and slightly damp. Your bare feet recoil from the shock of it, but there's no help for it. Your shoes, if you can call them that, are by the door. They are more memory than leather, worn so thin you can feel every pebble, every twist of root through the soles. You shuffle toward them in the perfect dark, navigating by a map etched into your soul, stepping over sleeping forms and around the pig, who grunts in porcine annoyance as you pass. The door is a slab of wood held together by hope and rusting iron bands. You lift the wooden latch, heavy as a sin, and push. The world outside is a study in gray. The air is cold and wet, clinging to your skin. It rained again last night, the 3rd time this week. The fields will be a sucking quagmire, which means the plowing will be a special kind of torture, which means your back will have new complaints to sing tonight. You add this to the long, silent ledger of accepted miseries and step out. Ashford is stirring. Smoke, thin and wistful, rises from a dozen thatched roofs, twisting into the low, belly-like clouds. Someone is already at the well, a woman whose name escapes you, hauling up a bucket of water with arms like knotted rope. A dog barks, a sharp sound in the damp air. Children's voices, high and needle-sharp, cut through the morning. Then, slow and sonorous, the church bell begins to ring, calling the faithful to morning prayers. You should go. Father William, with his pinched face and eyes like dark stones, says missing morning prayers is a sin, that God is watching, that the fires of hell are stoked for those who put work before worship. But Father William doesn't have to plow the Lord's field, then his own meager strips, then fix the patch of roof where the thatch is leaking a steady drip onto his sleeping daughter, then help his neighbor rebuild a fence that fell in the storm last Tuesday. Your time is not your own. You settle for a compromise right there in your doorway. You close your eyes, clasp your hands rough as bark. Please, Lord, you whisper, the words barely a breath. Let there be enough. Enough food, enough strength, enough dumb luck to make it through another day. It's the same prayer on the lips of every peasant you know. Not for wealth, not for glory, just enough. The privy is 50 yards from the house, a pit dug into the ground with some warped planks laid across it. The smell hits you like a physical wall halfway there. A ripe, gagging cocktail of human waste and something worse, something sweetly rotten. One of the boards has given up the ghost, splintered through. You make a mental note to fix it. Another item on the list that grows longer every day and shorter never. You do your business quickly, the cold biting at exposed skin, and hurry back. Agnes is awake now, standing in the doorway with a look you know all too well. It's the look that says, we need to talk, and the subject is never good. You brace yourself. The flower's almost gone, she says, her voice low. No preamble. You knew this was coming. You've watched the linen sack, pitifully slack, shrink day by day. But hearing the words aloud is a blow to the chest. How much? Enough for today. Maybe tomorrow if we stretch it thin as parchment. You just nod. This is the brutal mathematics of peasant life. The constant, grinding calculation of survival. How many days until the next harvest? How many weeks of hard winter left? How many spoonfuls of gruel can you conjure from nothing? The answer is always the same. Not enough. The answer is always, figure it out. I'll talk to the miller, you say, the words tasting like ash. See if he'll extend us credit. Agnes doesn't reply. She doesn't need to. The miller's credit comes with interest, a debt that wraps around your neck like a noose. Interest is how families lose their last cow, their last strip of land, their future. But what's the choice? You can't tell your children, sorry, no bread today. Maybe next week, if the rats don't get the grain first. This is the trap. You work yourself to the bone to grow more food, but half of everything you manage to coax from the stubborn earth goes straight to the Lord as rent. You're required to work the Lord's own fields 3 days a week, which is 3 days you can't spend on your own land, fighting your own war against starvation. You pay the miller a fee to grind your grain, and the fee always creeps up. You pay to use the manor's oven because baking bread in your own hearth is forbidden. You pay the church tithe 1/10 of everything because God demands his share. You pay and you pay and you pay until you're paying with the air in your lungs. Your grandfather, before the cough took him, used to mumble about the times before the great sickness, before half the village died in one long, screaming summer, and bodies were piled in carts because there was no one left strong enough to dig graves. That was 40 years ago, before you were even a thought. But Ashford never recovered. You can see the proof. Half the cottages are just hollow shells now, roofs collapsed in, gardens gone to bramble and weed. The Lord, though, he still demands the same amount of work, the same weight of grain. There are just half as many backs to break doing it. You try not to think about the sickness. Everyone does. But sometimes, in the deep watch of the night, the stories surface. The black swellings in the armpits and groin, big as apples. The fever that cooked brains in their skulls, made men rave at the moon. The fingers and toes turning black as charcoal, as if the body was burning from the inside out. They said it came from across the sea, carried on ships, spread by fleas on rats, moving on the wind like a curse. They said God was angry. They said the Jews poisoned the wells. They said a lot of things. All you know is your grandfather watched his whole world die in a fortnight, and he never really spoke again. But that was then. The sickness hasn't come back. Not yet. You shove the thoughts down, deep where they belong. Focus on what's in front of you. Breakfast is a cup of small beer, weak, slightly fermented grain water that's safer to drink than the well stuff, and a heel of bread so hard you have to dunk it in the beer just to risk a tooth on it. The bread is coarse, dark, made from barley and rye, a world away from the soft, white manship bread you know the Lord eats. You tasted that fine bread exactly once, at a feast where you were serving, and you still dream about its ghost sometimes. The children are awake now. Edmund, 5 years old, all knees and elbows and solemn eyes. Mary, 3, a tangle of curls and morning fussiness. They sit by the fire's feeble glow, sleepy and hungry. Agnes gives them each a tiny piece of the precious bread and a sip of milk from the goat. The goat, now, she is your most valuable possession, worth more than the cottage itself. You check on her last thing at night and first thing in the morning. Losing the goat wouldn't just be a setback. It would be the end. Papa? Edmund asks, his mouth full of mush. Can I come to the fields today? Not today, lad. You say, forcing a lightness you don't feel. The mud's too deep. You'd get stuck fast. It's a lie. The truth is you want to give him one more year of something resembling childhood. One more year before his small bones start to bend under the weight. Before he learns the full, crushing truth of what it means to be born where he was born. He'll learn soon enough. The world will teach him. You finish your sorry meal and head for the door. The sun is up now, a pale silver coin behind the relentless clouds, giving light but no warmth. The world is wet, gray, and cold, and it will stay that way for a long time yet. Agnes catches your arm as you pass. Her fingers are cold. Be careful, she says, her eyes holding yours. You don't ask what she means. You both know. Be careful of the mud that can swallow a man. Be careful of the plowshare that can slice through a foot. Be careful of the scythe, the ox, the falling branch. Be careful of the Lord's reeve, the man who watches everything with the eyes of a hawk, who can make your life a living hell with a word to the steward. Be careful of the 1,000 quiet ways the world has of ending a peasant. I will, you say, and you mean it, even though you both know that careful is a flimsy shield against the chaos of fate. You step out into the morning, and the day, like every day, begins. The walk to the Lord's field takes you through the heart of Ashford. You pass the church, its stone walls and wooden spire standing like a stern rebuke to the flimsy wattle and daub huts all around it. It's the only building made of anything meant to last. Next is the blacksmith's forge, already alive with heat and hammer song. the clang a sharp punctuation to the morning's quiet. Then the carpenter's shop, the weaver's cottage, the house where old Margaret lives alone now, her husband taken by the coughing sickness last winter. You nod to the ghosts of your neighbors as they pass. Everyone looks tired. Not the good tired of work done, but a deep, soul-weary exhaustion. Everyone looks hungry, a hollow look behind the eyes. And everyone, even the children, looks like they're carrying an invisible weight, shoulders bent under a burden even their empty hands can't put down. This is the real weight of this life. Sure, the physical labor'll break you, given time, but it's the knowledge that does the deep, lasting damage. The knowledge that you are trapped. Your father was born on this land, worked this land, died on this land. His father before him. And your son, little Edmund with his serious eyes. His path is already cut. The same dusty, muddy, endless furrow. The Lord owns the land you work. He owns the cottage you sleep in, the wood in your fire, the very grain you're begging credit for. You need his permission to get married, to leave the village, to die in a way that doesn't inconvenience him. You're not a free man in any sense that matters. You're a piece of the estate, a living tool. Sometimes, in the dead of night, you let yourself dream of leaving. Packing up Agnes, the kids, the damn pig, and just walking. Finding some town beyond the hills where no one knows your name, where you could maybe hire out your labor for actual coin. Be your own man. But you know the stories. You know what happens to peasants who run. The Lord sends his men on horses with hard faces. They hunt you down, drag you back in chains. Then there's a spectacle in the village square. A whipping, a lesson carved into your back for everyone else to see. And even if, by some miracle, you slip the net, what then? The fields are all you know. The rhythm of the soil, the feel of a plow handle, the smell of rain on turned earth. That's your whole world. Out there, you'd be less than nothing. A stranger, a beggar. So you stay, you work, you pray for enough. And maybe, if you're lucky, you live to see another spring thaw. The Lord's field unfurls before you like a punishment from God himself. 300 acres of mud and the sad, frost-bitten stubble of last year's crop. It waits, silent and massive, not just to be plowed, but harrowed, seeded, weeded, tended, and finally harvested. Every single step of it done by the strength of your back and the burn in your muscles. A dozen other men from the village are already out there, bent like nails over their tools, their breath pluming in the cold air. You know each of them by their silhouette alone. There's John the miller's son, built like an oak tree but moving with a slow, deliberate weariness. William the thatcher, skinny as a stray dog, working with a frantic energy just to keep his blood moving. And old Robert, who claims to be 50, a number so big it sounds like a fairy tale. If he's telling the truth, he's the oldest man any of you have ever laid eyes on. No one talks much this early. Conversation costs calories, and calories are a currency more precious than gold. You hoard your energy. You find your plow where you left it yesterday, half submerged in a puddle of brown water. The ox that pulls it, a sad sack beast the village collectively owns named Brownie, is already hitched and waiting. Brownie is 12, ancient for an ox. You can count every rib through his patchy hide. His eyes have a glazed, 1,000-yard stare, the look of a creature that has simply given up on the concept of hope. You know the feeling. The first hour is always the absolute worst. Your body is a collection of stiff, complaining parts. Your muscles are cold rope. Every step through the mud is a fight, the earth grabbing at your worn shoes like it wants to claim you. The plow catches on hidden roots and stones, jolting your arms with shocks that run straight to your teeth. Brownie plods forward at a pace entirely his own, ignoring your tired clicks and sighs. Brownie stopped listening to anyone, man or beast, about 5 years back. But you fall into the rhythm anyway. It's a brutal, mind-numbing ballet. Step, push, guide the blade. Step, push, guide. The share slices through the cold earth, turning over a ribbon of dark soil that smells of worms and decay. Behind you, a single, straight furrow points back toward the edge of the field. Ahead, nothing but an ocean of mud. This is the view of your life from above. A man and a broken-down ox, inching across a vast, brown expanse under a ceiling of endless gray. Repeat until you die. Your father did this. His father, too. Your son, God willing, will stand here one day, his young back learning the same old aches. The furrows you're cutting now probably sit right on top of furrows your great-grandfather cut a century ago. Nothing changes. Nothing ever changes. Except for when everything changes all at once in a storm of fire and blood. You try to keep the thoughts of war at bay, but out here, with nothing but mud and the rhythm of your own breathing, it's impossible. The shadow of it hangs over every village. John's older brother marched off with the Lord's levy 6 years back to some squabble over a border no peasant cared about. He never came home. No word, no body. Just an empty space at the table. William's father got conscripted during one of the endless troubles with France. He returned missing 3 fingers on his right hand and most of his wits, jumping at shadows, mumbling about screams and mud that ran red. And old Robert, if you could get a few cups of rough cider in him, would tell a tale about watching 200 men die in an afternoon in a field not unlike this one, fighting over a castle whose name he'd long forgotten. The brutal truth of being a peasant is you have zero say in any of it. When the Lord says march, you march. When the king demands men, you go. It doesn't matter that you've never held anything sharper than a pruning hook. It doesn't matter that your only armor is a thick winter tunic and your only helmet is your own thick skull. They don't issue you gear. You bring what you have, a knife for eating, a wood axe, maybe a hunting bow if you're one of the lucky few who owns one. You stand in a ragged line with the miller, the smith, the thatcher, men you've known your whole life, and you face professional soldiers, men who've trained for this since they could walk, encased in steel, atop war horses that look like moving mountains. The lucky ones come home. The unlucky ones feed the crows. And the ones in between, like William's father, come back as broken remnants, ghosts of who they were. You go anyway, because the alternative, refusing your lord, is a one-way ticket to a noose or a branding iron. Your own grandfather would sometimes mumble, in his cups, about the Northmen, the raiders from across the sea, back in his own grandfather's time. He spoke of dragon-headed ships appearing like nightmares on the river, of men with axes burning everything in sight, of whole villages erased between dusk and dawn, the people killed or dragged off in chains to be sold in markets in a world you can't even imagine. That was 200 years ago. The raids stopped, but the fear they planted took root and grew, passed down through the generations like a family heirloom of terror. The fear that someday, without warning, everything you have, your home, your family, your fragile life, could be taken from you in a single night of fire and screaming. And then there was the conqueror. Not the one in the official stories, but the one in the hushed tales grandmothers told. What happened in the north when the new king took the throne. How his army swept through like a scythe, burning crops, slaughtering livestock, salting the earth itself to make sure no one there could ever raise a hand again. Whole regions emptied. People starved by the thousands, their bellies swollen, their eyes blank. Land left so cursed nothing grew for years. That was before anyone you know was born. But the stories are a warning etched in the collective memory. Don't draw attention. Don't make trouble. Keep your head down, work your strip, and pray the powerful forget you exist. It happened before. Could happen again. The sun climbs, not that you can tell through the quilt of cloud. By what feels like mid-morning, you've plowed maybe a quarter of an acre. Your shoulders are on fire. The pain in your lower back has moved past sharp agony into a deep, numb throbbing, a second heartbeat of misery. Your hands, wrapped in rags to keep the blisters at bay, are slick with sweat and mud. You stop, leaning hard on the plow handle, gasping for air that doesn't feel like it has any strength in it. Brownie doesn't even notice. He just stands there, chewing on nothing, staring at some private vision of bovine despair. Then, from across the field, you hear it, shouting, a voice that turns your blood to ice water. You look up. He's coming. The reeve. His name is Geoffrey. In the strictest sense, he's a peasant like you. But that's where the similarity ends. He's the Lord's man, his eyes and ears and fist in the village. He wears clothes of thicker wool with less patching. He eats regularly. He has a horse, for Christ's sake. A horse. And he has a power that's almost worse than the Lord's own. The petty, vicious power of a man who can make your existence miserable in 1,000 tiny, legal ways. He can assign you the worst, rock-filled strips to plow. He can report you for slacking, which can mean extra days of labor on the manor, or a fine you can't pay. He can lose your rent payment and demand it twice. Everyone hates Jeffrey. Everyone fears him. And everyone, you included, pastes on a smile and nods like a simpleton when he rides by. He trots up on his nag, a smug look on his pinched face. Edwin. Reeve. You say, keeping your eyes down, just shy of respectful. You're behind. I know. The mud's thick as pottage today. Mud's thick for everyone, he says, his voice flat. You're still behind. Arguing is a luxury for people who aren't you. You just nod again. A tight little jerk of the head. I'll work faster. You hope that's it. You hope he moves on to terrorize John or William. He doesn't. Lord's expecting guests, Jeffrey says, as if announcing a divine prophecy. Week from now, proper feast. We'll need extra hands at the manor house. Kitchen, hall, stables. Your stomach doesn't just drop. It plunges straight through the muddy earth. Extra hands. That's you. That's unpaid labor. Work that will steal days, precious, vital days, away from preparing your own strips for planting. Days your family will have to fend without you. Days that edge you closer to the cliff. When? You ask, the word tasting like dirt. Starting tomorrow, you and 3 others. For days. Maybe 5. For days. 5 days. That's a week of your own survival gone. Your mind races, doing the brutal math of hunger. The flour sack Agnes mentioned. The turnips in the storage pit, wrinkled and few. The goat's milk already thin. 5 days is a lifetime when you're living on the edge of one. But what can you say? No? The word doesn't exist in your vocabulary when the Lord, or his weasel, gives an order. You nod a 3rd time, the motion feeling robotic. Aye. Jeffrey gives you a final, dismissive look, as if confirming you're as dull and compliant as he hoped, and spurs his horse toward William. The rest of the day dissolves into a blur of pain and monotony. Plow. Rest your burning arms. Plow. The world narrows to the patch of mud in front of you, the groan of the plow, the smell of brownie. Your body moves on its own, a machine of flesh and bone, while your mind drifts to darker places. To Agnes, back in the smoke-filled cottage, trying to make a meal from wishes and water. To Edmund and Mary, too young to understand the complex web of duty and dread that holds their father captive. To the new baby, a secret swell beneath Agnes's clothes, another mouth you have no idea how to feed, another soul to offer up to this grinding world. And you think of all the things waiting in the shadows. Disease is the big one, the constant, humming threat. Last winter, a coughing sickness blew through Ashford like a foul wind. Took 7 people. 2 of them were children, little ones Edmund's age. One day they were playing in the muck. The next, they were burning up. The day after that, their mothers were wailing by fresh-dug graves. The physicians, traveling charlatans in strange hats, showed up after the worst had passed. They talked about bad air and imbalanced humors, waved smelly herbs around, and then took what little coin the grieving families had left. The real help, such as it was, came from old Martha at the edge of the village. She knows which leaves can bring a fever down, which moss can help a wound knit. But even Martha's magic is limited. She can't mend a lung turned to liquid. She can't breathe life back into a still, small chest. Then there's injury. One slip. One moment of tired inattention. A broken leg isn't just a painful inconvenience. It's a death sentence for your family. If you can't work, you don't eat. If you don't eat, you die. And your family follows. You saw it happen to a man named Harold 3 winters back. He was patching his roof, lost his footing, fell. His leg snapped, the bone poking through the skin. For 2 weeks he lay in his hut, sweating and crying as the bone tried to set itself crooked. Then the wound turned the color of a rotten plum and started to stink. By the time they got the village carpenter to saw the leg off, it was too late. The rot was in his blood. His widow and their 3 kids spent the next half-year begging at the church door until the manor took pity and made them scullery slaves. You don't let yourself finish that thought. You never do. The light begins to fail, the gray sky turning a darker, more somber shade of gray. You've plowed maybe half an acre. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But your body is a tapped-out well. Even Jeffrey can't expect you to plow in the pitch dark. Probably. You unhitch Brownie, the old ox sighing like a deflated bellows. You lead him back toward the village stable, his steps even slower and more plodding than this morning, if that's possible. You give his bony neck a pat. "Did good, old fellow." You murmur, though he did nothing of the sort. What's the point in being cruel to a creature just as trapped as you are? The walk back to the cottage feels longer than the trek out. Your legs are logs. Your feet squelch in shoes that are now more cold mud than leather. The damp chill is seeping back into the world. That deep, bone-ache cold that won't leave until May. The village is settling in for the night. Smoke signals surrender from the chimneys. Doors are shut tight. Somewhere, a baby's thin cry pierces the quiet. Somewhere else, a dog barks, a lonely sound. The church bell rings for evening prayers. You're too tired to feel guilty about missing it. Father William can scold you on Sunday. You'll survive his disapproval. Agnes is at the door. One look at her face, pale and tight in the twilight, and you know something's wrong. Your heart, already heavy, sinks further. What is it? She doesn't answer. She pulls you inside, away from the creeping cold, into the smoky, familiar fog of the cottage. The fire is going, a minor miracle of scavenged twigs and dried dung. The children are already asleep, curled together like a litter of puppies near the hearth's meager warmth. Your mother is awake, watching you with eyes that have seen too many winters. "It's Robert," Agnes says finally, her voice low. "Old Robert. He collapsed in the field this afternoon. They carried him back to his cottage, but..." She doesn't finish. She doesn't need to. You sit down heavily on the hard-packed floor. Old Robert, the man who told rambling tales of wars and famines survived, who claimed to have seen a king once, though no one believed him, who was supposed to be living proof that a peasant could beat the odds, could crawl all the way to 50. The walking testament to stubbornness. "How long?" You ask, your voice rough. Agnes shakes her head. "Tonight, maybe tomorrow." His daughter's sitting with him. You think about walking over there, saying goodbye, paying respects to a man who was a fixture of your world, as permanent as the old oak tree. But your body rebels. Your legs are stone. And what words do you have? What comfort can you offer to a dying man? Or to a daughter about to be alone in the world? Nothing that will change a damn thing. "Tomorrow," you say, more to yourself than to her. "I'll go tomorrow." Tonight, you need to not move. Tonight, you need to eat whatever scrap Agnes has saved. Tonight, you need to feel the solid weight of your children in your arms and the warmth of your wife beside you and try, for a few stolen minutes, to believe that not everything in the world is cold and hard and cruel. Agnes brings you a wooden bowl. It holds a thin pottage, more murky broth than substance, with a few sad pieces of turnip floating like pale little islands. You eat it slowly, making each bite last, because this might be it until tomorrow's meager breakfast. The fire crackles. The wind mutters outside, trying the door. The pig snorts in its sleep. And you sit there, in your one-room universe, surrounded by the people you love, thinking about Robert dying, about Jeffrey's smug face, about the baby coming, about the empty flour sack, about the 1,000 other worries that circle your mind like carrion birds. This is the medieval life they don't put in the songs about knights and chivalry. Not the glitter and the glory, but the mud and the hunger and the quiet, constant fear. The work that has no end and the death that has no schedule. The tiny, fleeting joys that wink between the suffering like the first, weak star on a cloudy evening. You finish the pottage, the bowl empty too soon. Agnes leans against you, her head finding the hollow of your shoulder. Her belly, that gentle curve of new life, presses against your arm. "Do you think it'll be a boy or a girl?" she whispers. "You don't know. You don't care. You just want it to be alive. You just want it to breathe. Whichever God sends us, You say the old, safe answer. She nods against you, her hair smelling of smoke and herbs. The fire burns lower. The cottage darkens around its edges. One by one, the others surrender to sleep, finding their patches of straw, pulling thin blankets over their weary bodies. You should sleep too. Tomorrow will be harder. Tomorrow you report to the manor house a different kind of servitude. But for now, for this one stolen moment, you just sit. You watch the flames dance their final, feeble dance. You try to make your mind a blank, a quiet field after the plow has passed. The pig snorts. Mary mumbles in her sleep, a child's secret dream. The wind finds a new pitch, a low moan in the thatch. And slowly, so slowly, your own eyes begin to close. The darkness inside finally matches the darkness outside. You don't know it yet, but old Robert has already slipped away. His long fight is over. Your own fight, the daily, grinding battle for enough, is set to continue at first light. But for these last few moments of peace, you rest. A hard knock at the door yanks you from a sleep that felt like it lasted only seconds. It's still the deep, formless dark before dawn. The cottage is a symphony of soft snores and restless shifting. You're on your feet before you're fully awake, the cold floor a shock to your bare soles. It's Robert's daughter, Margaret. Her face in the sliver of moonlight is a mask of tears and exhaustion, pale as a moth's wing. She doesn't say the words. She doesn't need to. The raw, hollow look in her eyes says it all. He's gone. You dress in the dark, the familiar, rough wool tunic and hose feeling like a suit of lead. The cottage sleeps on around you. Agnes, the children, your mother, all breathing softly in the gloom. You don't wake Agnes. You just slip out into the knife-edge cold of the night, closing the door on the warmth behind you. Robert's cottage is at the far end of Ashford, near the great, gnarled oak that everyone swears was ancient when the Romans left. The walk is a ghostly procession. You pass the church where a single candle flickers in Father William's window. The priest, always watching, even over death. You pass the blacksmith's forge, a dark, silent hulk. You pass the well, where someone has left a wooden bucket sitting forgotten in the mud. The door to Robert's home stands open, an invitation to the final, cold guest. Inside, it's a mirror of your own place. One room, packed earth. A central fire pit gone cold, smoke stains climbing the walls like black ivy. But the air is different, is heavy, presses down on your shoulders as you cross the threshold. He's laid out on a bed of straw near the back wall. Someone has closed his eyes and placed a single, thin copper coin on each lid. A pauper's payment for the ferryman. His hands are folded over his chest. The face that was always wrinkled into a squint or a storyteller's grin is slack, strangely peaceful. Surprises you. You've seen death before, plenty of it. Most faces don't look peaceful. They look surprised or angry or just terribly, terribly empty. But Robert's, he looks like he's finally put down a burden he'd been carrying for 50 years. His daughter, Margaret, sits on a stool beside him. She looks like she's been carved from the same stone as the cottage walls. Her eyes are red raw. Her hands won't stop moving, twisting a scrap of cloth into a tight, tortured knot. He went easy, she says, her voice a dry rustle. Just stopped breathing. Didn't wake up. You nod. A good death. It's the thing you're supposed to say. Better than Harold with his rotting leg. Better than the children who coughed their lungs out. Better than the plague victims, screaming and blackened. It's still death, though. The great leveler. The only thing in this world that's truly fair. You stay for a while, a silent sentinel. Other villagers drift in as word seeps through the sleeping settlement. John appears, holding his hat in big, rough hands. William comes with his wife, their faces solemn. Even Geoffrey the Reeve makes an appearance, which sends a ripple of quiet astonishment through the room. He stands in the doorway for a moment, doesn't even fully enter, and says, "He was a good worker. Steady." It's the closest thing to a kind word anyone has ever heard from Geoffrey's lips. Then he's gone, back to the business of squeezing the living. Father William arrives last, a black crow with his Bible and his brass cross. wearing that particular blend of sorrow and smug satisfaction that priests perfect. Death is their moment. Death is when the fear of hell becomes a tangible, suffocating thing in the room, and the church holds the only keys. He launches into the Latin prayers, the foreign, flowing words that wash over you like a cold river. You bow your head with the others, but the meaning is lost. The church speaks a language you don't understand, and you suspect that's the point. It exists above you, making rules in a tongue you can't read, demanding a tithe, 1/10 of everything you scratch from the earth, in the name of a God who seems to favor the well-fed. You pay it because the alternative, they tell you, is an eternity of fire, of demons with hooks, of suffering so vast your mind can't wrap around it. The priests describe it in vivid, loving detail. And you believe them because what choice do you have? You can't read the Bible. Neither can anyone in Ashford except Father William. For all you know, the book says to be kind and share your bread. Or it says to obey without question and give all you have. How would you ever know? Robert, they all murmur, was a good Christian. Never missed a Sunday. Always paid his share. If anyone's earned a ticket past the pearly gates, it's him. But a cold sliver of doubt worms its way in anyway. The doubt, they tell you, is a sin in itself. Robert was 50 or so, he said. The truth is, nobody really knows how old anyone is. There are no records for people like you. No birthdays celebrated. You exist because the people around you remember you exist. When the last person who remembers you is gone, it's as if you were never here at all. 50 years. A full life. More than most dare to hope for. You wonder if your own body, already aching with 28 years of hard labor, has another 22 in it. The burial will be later today, in the churchyard beside his wife and the son who died in infancy decades ago. Father William will say more words. People will weep, and then life, relentless life, will push forward. Because it has to. You slip out while the Latin is still echoing off the walls. There's nothing more you can do here, and the manor house is waiting. The walk there takes you through a part of Ashford you usually avoid. Past the plague cottages on the east side, their roofs collapsed inward like broken spines, their gardens a riot of nettles and sorrow. Past the little stream where, in warmer months, the women beat laundry against the rocks. Past the boundary stone, a moss-covered lump that marks where the village ends and the Lord's personal domain begins. The road is a river of mud and deep, treacherous ruts. In summer, it's passable. Now, after the winter rains, it's a slog. Carts get buried to the axles. Horses pull up lame. There are tales of travelers drowning in ruts so deep they couldn't climb out. You've never traveled more than 5 miles from Ashford in your entire life. Why would you? Everything you need and everything that owns you is right here. Out there is just danger. Bandits in the woods. Wolves in the hills. Other lords who might hang you for trespassing on their land without a pass you'll never get. And even if you dodged all that, there are no maps, no signs. You'd be lost in a world you have no name for. People do travel, of course. Pilgrims heading to shrines, hoping a saint's bone will cure what ails them. Merchants moving bolts of cloth or barrels of wine. Soldiers, but not you. Your father went to the market town once, 20 miles away. It took him 3 days to get there, 3 days back, and he talked about it for years afterward. The buildings of stone, the crowds, the noise and the stench and the sheer, overwhelming size of it all. He never went again. Said once was enough. The manor house appears through a screen of bare-limbed trees. It's the largest structure you've ever seen. 2 stories of timber and stone, with actual glass in some of the windows, panes that catch the weak light and hold it. Smoke rises from 3, maybe 4 different chimneys. A stable stands off to one side, and you can hear the comfortable stomp and snort of horses from within. This is where Sir Richard de Ashford lives. A man you've seen maybe a dozen times in your life. He's not a cruel lord, as lords go. He doesn't beat his peasants for sport. He takes only what the law and custom allow. But he doesn't know you, doesn't know your name, your face, the names of your children. To him, you're a unit of labor, a rent payer, a body to fill a space in his field or his hall. You join the other conscripted hands at the kitchen entrance, a world away from the main door. There's Tom, Agnes's cousin, a quiet man with a limp. A boy from the next village, all nervous energy and sharp elbows. And Maud, a woman older than you with steel-gray hair and a permanent frown etched deep around her mouth. The Manor cook, a red-faced tyrant named Marjorie, puts you to work before you can even say your name. Haul water from the well, split logs for the ovens, carry heavy sacks of flour, each one worth more than your monthly earnings, from the storage shed to the kitchen. The work is different from plowing, but it's no easier. By what passes for mid-morning, your arms are trembling with fatigue, your back a solid bar of pain. The one small mercy is the heat. The kitchen is a hell of its own, but it's a warm hell. A chaos of steam and shouted orders and frantic movement. Servants in cleaner clothes than yours rush about, preparing for the feast. And the food, God, the food. You see things you've only heard about in stories. Whole chickens, their skin golden and crisp. Great haunches of beef, dripping juices into the fire. Fish that must have come from the sea, a 2-day ride away. Bread so white it looks like it's made from cloud stuff. Your stomach, used to its empty, gnawing state, clenches with a painful, yearning cramp. But none of this is for you. Not a crumb. This is the Lord's table, a display of wealth and power as much as a meal. You haul your water and split your wood and try not to think about the cosmic joke of being surrounded by such plenty while your own children ask for meat with hungry eyes. During a brief lull, you find yourself thinking of Agnes. You met her 8 years ago at a harvest festival. She was 15, a slip of a thing with dark hair that escaped her kerchief and a laugh that could cut through the gloom of any room. Getting married wasn't some grand church affair. For peasants, it's simpler. You declare yourselves before witnesses, usually just family and neighbors. You move in together and that's that. Some don't even bother with witnesses. The church hates that, of course. They want everything official, everything blessed, everything under their control. But what the church wants and what happens in the mud and reality of village life are often two very different things. Agnes's father hadn't been thrilled. You were a scrawny nobody with no prospects, but Agnes was stubborn, and eventually he relented. The learning curve of being husband and wife was steep and awkward. The wedding night was a fumbling, hurried mystery. The village women had given Agnes whispered advice. The men had given you crude jokes. Neither was a good manual. You figured it out, though. You figure everything out when there's no other choice. A year later, Edmund was born, red and screaming and perfect. 2 years after that, a little girl. She lived 3 days, then just stopped breathing in the night. You buried her in a grave so small it barely made a dent in the earth. Then came Mary, loud and healthy. Then another pregnancy that ended in a terrifying rush of blood and pain before it truly began. And now this new life, for months along and growing. The church calls children blessings, gifts from God. And maybe they are. But they're also a brutal gamble. Every pregnancy is a roll of the dice against the grim reaper. Will the baby live? Will the mother survive the birth? Will you be able to feed another mouth? You've watched women die in childbirth. Agnes's own mother died, bringing her youngest brother into the world. The baby died a week later. Her father never remarried. Said once was enough. The midwife is old Martha, the same woman who knows healing herbs. She knows ways to ease the pain, tricks to turn a baby that's coming wrong, prayers to say when the shadows gather. But sometimes the shadows don't listen. Sometimes the baby is too big. Sometimes the bleeding won't stop. Sometimes God or fate or just plain bad luck decides it's time, and there's nothing Martha or anyone can do. Every time Agnes's belly swells, you spend 9 months holding your breath. She does too. She doesn't say it, but you see it in her eyes when she thinks you're not looking. The quiet, desperate preparation for an end she hopes never comes. This is what it means to be a woman in your world. Your body belongs to your husband. Your purpose is to bear children, preferably sons. Your worth is measured in surviving births and raising workers. And every single time you fulfill that purpose, you roll the dice with your life. Agnes doesn't complain. None of the women do. What would be the point? This is the way it is. The way it's always been. But sometimes, in the deep of the night, You hold her and feel the beat of her heart and think of the monstrous unfairness of it all. How she works just as hard, maybe harder, and gets none of the credit. How she holds the entire fragile enterprise of your family together through sheer force of will, while the world sees her as little more than property. You can't change it. You're just a peasant. You can't change anything. But you can hold her. You can tell her she's strong. You can make sure she knows, in your clumsy way, that you see her, that you rely on her, that you love her with a depth that has no fancy words. It's not enough. It's never enough. But it's something. The afternoon drags on, a procession of more water, more wood, more hauling and sweating. By evening, you're so tired you see spots at the edges of your vision. The cook shoves a bowl into your hands, a gray, lumpy slop of leftovers from the servant's meal. You eat it without tasting, standing in a corner where you won't be underfoot. Food is fuel. You stopped caring about flavor around the time you realized you'd never have enough of it. Then comes the long walk home in the gathering dark, your body moving on a memory of the path. The village is quiet, shut up tight against the cold and the night. Smoke signals from the chimneys. A dog barks a challenge to the darkness. The church bell rings for evening prayers, and this time, you're too bone-weary to even feel the twinge of guilt for missing them. Agnes is at the door, a shadow with a worried silhouette. The manor is only 2 miles, but 2 miles in the pitch black on these roads is a world of potential disaster. "You're back," she says, the relief palpable. "I'm back." She reaches out, touches your face, your hands, her fingers checking for new injuries, a ritual as old as your marriage. "Robert's buried," she says softly. "While you were gone, Father William did the service. Most of the village came." You nod. You're sorry you missed it. But the Lord's work doesn't wait for funerals. The Lord's work doesn't wait for anything. "The children are asleep," she continues. "I saved you some bread. It's not much. It's enough." You tell her, and you mean it. It has to be. You step inside, into the smoky, familiar embrace of home. The fire is low but alive. The pig grunts in recognition. Your mother is awake, sitting by the hearth's glow, her hands busy mending something. She looks up, nods once, her version of a welcome, and returns to her work. 3 more days of this, you think. 3 more days of servitude in the manor, and then back to the fields, back to your own losing battle. But for now, for this single stolen moment, you're home. You're safe. You're warm. That has to be enough for tonight. It has to be. The second day at the manor house brings a visitor. He arrives just past midday, his cart a groaning, mud-spattered beast pulled by a pair of horses that look well-fed and bored. The merchant himself is a short, round man with a beard trimmed neat as a hedge and a cloak of thick, oiled wool that actually sheds the damp. You've never owned anything truly waterproof in your life. The sight of him, dry and assured, feels like a personal insult. His arrival throws the kitchen into fresh chaos. Cook Marjorie's shouts reach a new, ear-piercing pitch. Servants scatter like startled chickens. You and the other conscripts are put to work unloading the cart, which is packed with barrels that slosh promisingly, crates that smell of strange spices, and cloth-wrapped bundles that hint at luxuries from another world. The merchant watches you work, picking his teeth with a small, sharp knife. "Strong back on that one," he says to no one in particular, nodding at you. "Shame about the rest of him." You don't react. What would you say? He's not wrong. Next to his rosy cheeks and clean fingernails, you are a scarecrow made of gristle and old pain, weathered by 100 seasons you're not sure you'll see the end of. But you're also burning with a curiosity you can't quite stamp out. This man has been to London, the great city, the place your father spoke of with a kind of holy awe, a place as distant and mythical as Jerusalem, a place you will never, ever see. During a lull, while the merchant is distracted haggling with the steward over the price of pepper, you gather your nerve. You sidle closer, keeping your eyes down like you're just tidying the area. Your voice comes out a rough croak. "What's it like? London?" The merchant turns, looks you up and down as if seeing you for the first time. Then he laughs. It's not a cruel laugh, not exactly. It's the laugh of a man who's just been asked what the sun tastes like. You want to know about London? He says, his eyes crinkling. Boy, I'll tell you about London. He settles himself on an upturned barrel, gesturing for you to come closer. You do, like a moth drawn to a very strange, very talkative flame. First thing that hits you, he begins, leaning forward conspiratorially, is the smell. You think your little pigsty of a village smells bad? Multiply that by 1,000, by 10,000. He lets that hang in the air, savoring your wide-eyed stare. You've got 60,000 souls packed into a space not much bigger than this manor and its fields. 60,000 people eating, drinking, pissing, shitting, dying. And it all goes into the streets. You try to picture it. Your mind can't. The largest crowd you've ever seen was at a Saints' Day fair, maybe 200 people. That felt overwhelming. There's a street near Aldgate, he continues, warming to his subject. They call it Stinking Lane. You know why? Because it stinks. The whole city stinks. But that street, that's special. The butchers work there. They toss the offal right into the gutter. Guts, blood, heads, the bits nobody'll buy. The rain tries to wash it down to the river, but the river's its own special kind of foul. The Thames is brown with it. People dump everything in there. Everything. He shakes his head, but there's a perverse pride in his voice, as if the sheer scale of the filth is an accomplishment. The cesspits? They overflow every time it rains hard. Backs right up into people's cellars. I knew a merchant. Woke up one morning with 6 inches of his neighbor's business floating in his bedchamber. True story. You must look horrified, because he grins, revealing a gold-capped tooth. The houses are built so close you can shake hands with the fellow across the way from your own window, and everyone just empties their chamber pots into the street. They're supposed to shout "Gardaloo" as a warning. Half the time they can't be bothered. You learn to walk in the middle of the road. You learn to look up. He pauses, scratches his chin. The public latrines? Long rows of seats over a common pit. Dozens of men, side by side, conducting their affairs. The smell would knock a horse flat. And when the pits fill, they hire men to dig 'em out at night. Gong farmers, they're called. Worst job in Christendom. Maybe the worst job there ever was. A question forms, stupid and hopeful. Why does anyone live there? The merchant laughs again. A short, sharp bark. Money, you simpleton. Money and opportunity. A clever man can make a fortune in London. The guilds, the trade, the ships coming up the river. There's more gold moving through that city in a single day than your whole shire will see in 100 years. He stands, brushing imaginary dust from his fine cloak. But you'd never survive it. Country folk like you're not built for the city. Too soft. You'd catch a fever from the bad air and be dead within a month. Mark my words. He walks away, leaving you standing there with your bucket, your mind reeling. 60,000 people. You try to stack 60,000 of anything in your head, and the number just dissolves into meaningless noise. What would it be like? To be surrounded on all sides by strangers, to breathe air thick with the smoke of 10,000 fires and the rot of 10,000 middens, to drink water tinged brown from the waste of the rich men upstream? The merchant is probably right. You'd last a week, but a secret, traitorous part of you wishes you could see it anyway. Just once. Just to know what lies beyond the boundary stone. The work resumes, hauling, scrubbing, bowing. The manor house is a museum of wonders you can look at but never touch. Actual beds, raised off the floor on frames, with mattresses stuffed with feathers instead of scratchy straw. Tapestries on the walls, not for warmth you realize, but for show, depicting hunting scenes and strange, armored saints. Candles made of beeswax that burn with a clear, bright flame and a smell like honey. Not the tallow candles that stink of burning fat and gutter miserably. And the privy. The Lord's privy is a room. A small, dedicated chamber with a wooden seat over a hole that drops into a deep pit. There's even a bucket of ash and dried herbs to toss down after to keep the stench at bay. You've been using a hole in the ground with rotting boards your whole life. The Lord has a room with a door. It shouldn't make you feel anything, but it does. A cold, hard knot of something settles in your gut. It isn't hot anger. It's colder, heavier. A stone of understanding. Later, you're put to work hauling hot water up a narrow servant's stair for the Lord's bath. Yes, a bath. Not a quick splash in the stream, but a proper soak in a great wooden tub. The water heated over the kitchen fires and carried up, bucket by agonizing bucket, by you and others like you. The lady bathes too, separately, in water scented with oils that smell of lavender and roses. Her maids chatter as they work, and the sweet scent drifts through the upper floor for hours. You haven't had a proper bath since last summer, when the stream was warm enough to stand in for more than a shivering minute. Most people you know smell like wood smoke, sweat, and the animals they live with. You've stopped noticing your own scent. But here, surrounded by soap and clean linen and people who wash as a regular event, you become acutely aware of yourself. The grime etched into the lines of your hands. The greasy, matted feel of your hair under your cap. The sour, animal odor that rises from your own body when you lift your arms to carry a crate. The manor servants, who are peasants themselves in theory, look at you with thinly veiled disgust. They're house peasants, a different breed. They sleep in the attic, eat the Lord's leftovers, wear his cast-off clothes. They've forgotten what real field mud feels like. One of them, a girl no older than your Mary will be in a decade, wrinkles her nose pointedly as you pass, holding a corner of her apron over her face. You say nothing. What is there to say? That evening, trudging home in the utter blackness, you tally the differences. The Lord has glass. You have shutters. The Lord has a chimney that draws smoke. You have a hole that mostly lets in rain. The Lord has servants to empty his chamber pot. You have a fly-blown pit. The Lord has physicians who will come from the town if he coughs, with their costly potions and leeches. You have old Martha and her prayers. And yet, Father William assures you, you worship the same God. You are equal in his eyes. The meek shall inherit the earth. Suffering here buys glory hereafter. Maybe. It's a nice story. It's just hard to square with the reality of hauling bathwater for a man who wouldn't know your name if you died at his feet, while your own son goes to bed with a belly that's never full. Agnes has saved you the usual crust and a bit of cheese so hard you could hammer nails with it. You eat standing by the cooling hearth, too tired to sit. How was it? She asks, watching you. You think of the merchant's tales, the privy room, the scented bathwater, the girl's wrinkled nose. Fine, you say. Just work. She knows you're lying. She always knows. But she doesn't push. She waits, and if you want to talk, you will. Tonight, you don't. The children sleep. Your mother sleeps. The world outside is a black maw. But inside these thin walls, there is a fragile warmth. Family. Something that could, in a certain light, be mistaken for peace. You lie down on the straw. Agnes curls against you, her pregnant belly a firm curve against your back. The baby kicks. A sudden, firm thump you can feel through her body and yours. Still alive. Still fighting. Still on its way to this difficult world. You close your eyes. Tomorrow is the third day. The feast itself. You have no idea what fresh wonders and humiliations await. But for now, in the dark, with the rhythm of Agnes's breathing against your spine, you let it all go. It is not peace exactly, but it is a ceasefire, and for a peasant that is often the best you can hope for. 3 things wake you in the dead of night. The first is the cold. The fire has dwindled to a nest of faintly glowing embers, and the chill has come creeping back, settling into the cottage like an unwelcome guest. Your breath plumes in the black air. The second is the pig. He's restless, shifting and grunting in his corner, disturbed by something you can't see or hear. The third is the sound of the church bells, but not the slow, familiar toll for prayers. These bells are ringing fast and frantic, a clanging, urgent alarm that hammers through the stillness. A pattern every villager knows in their marrow. Something's wrong. You're on your feet before your eyes are fully open, the cold forgotten. Agnes is sitting up, one hand instinctively on the swell of her belly. The children stir, whimpering at the sudden noise. Your mother is already at the shutter, peering out through a crack. What is it? Agnes whispers, fear threading her voice. You don't know, but your blood knows. Nothing good follows those bells. Stay here, you say, the command pointless even as you utter it. You pull on your shoes and burst outside. Other villagers are spilling from their doorways, drawn by the same primal alarm. Faces are pale blurs in the weak moonlight, eyes wide with the same unspoken question. Father William is running toward the church, his nightshirt hitched up around his knees, looking like a startled, flapping bird. Fire! The shout rips through the night, raw with panic. Fire at the Millers! You turn. On the far side of the village, an orange hellglow paints the underbelly of the clouds. A thick, black column of smoke, darker than the night itself, claws its way into the sky. Your feet are moving before your mind can catch up. A fire in a village like Ashford is everyone's disaster. The cottages huddle together, their thatched roofs dry as tinder after the long winter. If one goes up, the wind could carry the sparks and turn the whole village into a funeral pyre. You've heard the stories, passed down like ghost tales, of settlements wiped off the map in a single screaming hour. You run faster than you've run in years, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. Your legs, already aching from the day's labor, scream in protest. Your lungs burn with the cold air. But you don't stop. You can't. Because if that fire spreads, the cottage behind you, with everyone you love inside it, is just another pile of kindling. By the time you reach the miller's cottage, half the village is already there. A scene from a waking nightmare cast in flickering, monstrous light. Men have formed a bucket chain from the well, a serpent of desperate humanity passing sloshing pails hand over hand toward the flames. Women are dragging crying children and bleeding goats away from the heat. The miller himself, Thomas, stands frozen in his doorway, his face and clothes blackened with soot, screaming not for help, but for his grain. The grain! The grain! It's a raw, animal sound, the cry of a man watching his future burn. You fall into the chain, grab a bucket, pass it forward, grab another. The heat is a physical force, even from 30 feet away. It sears your face, dries your eyes to grit. Sparks, carried on the hot updraft, drift through the air like malevolent fireflies. One lands on your forearm and sears a pinprick of agony before you can slap it away. In the chaos, voices rise and twist together. Someone is praying, the words a frantic, broken stream. Someone else is just sobbing. The miller's wife is on her knees in the churned mud, clutching her infant to her chest, rocking back and forth as if the motion alone could save them. Takes hours. Hours of backbreaking, lung-searing, hope-stretching labor. Hours of watching the flames, defiant and hungry, climb the thatch and then, slowly, so slowly, begin to die as the water finally wins. By the time the first sickly gray light of dawn bleeds into the sky, the miller's home is a smoldering skeleton. The roof is gone, a gaping maw to the sky. The walls are charred timbers. Everything inside, the meager furniture, the stored clothing, the precious, life-sustaining grain, is ash and ruin. But the fire didn't spread. The neighboring cottages are scorched and steaming, but they stand. The village survives. You stand there as the sun, indifferent, begins its climb. You are covered in a paste of ash, sweat, and mud. Your arms hang useless at your sides, trembling with a deep, cellular exhaustion. All around you, villagers wear the same blank, shell-shocked expression, staring at the destruction, whispering thanks to a god who at least spared the rest. Thomas the miller sits in the mud where his front door used to be. He isn't crying. He isn't speaking. He just sits, staring at the ruin of his life. His wife is beside him now, still clutching the baby, both of them looking smaller than they did yesterday. They will have to rebuild from nothing, with winter's grip barely loosening and the spring planting demanding every ounce of strength and seed. The math is impossible. You think about offering help, but what help can you give? You have nothing to spare. None of you do. You are all one spark, one fever, one bad harvest away from sitting in your own pile of ashes. Father William picks his way through the debris, his robes held fastidiously clear of the muck. He places a hand on Thomas's shoulder. God's will is mysterious, he intones, his voice carrying in the hushed morning. We must trust in his plan. All happens for a reason. Maybe Thomas believes it. Maybe the words are a balm. You turn away and start the long walk home. The stone in your gut isn't grief for Thomas. Not exactly. It's the cold recognition. That could be me. That will be me if I'm unlucky for just one moment. Agnes is waiting at the door, her face pale with a night of watching and worry. You're safe, she says. It isn't a question. I'm safe. You let her pull you inside. She helps you wash the worst of the grime from your face and hands, her touch gentle. The children are miraculously asleep again. Your mother is by the hearth, her lips moving in silent, ceaseless prayer. You sit heavily on the floor. Your body feels like it wants to dissolve. Your mind is a racing thing, jumping from the image of the flames to the empty flour sack to the coming day at the manor. Could have been us? Agnes says quietly, staring into the weak fire. Could have been anyone, you reply. That's the truth of it. Fire doesn't care if you're a good man, a hard worker, a loving father. It just consumes. And when it's done, you pick through the ashes and keep going because stopping is not an option. Outside, the village is stirring into a new day. A day of grim assessment and whispered speculation. There will be talk of how it started. A fallen candle, a stray ember, maybe even malice. There will be gossip and blame, and offers of help that everyone knows are more symbol than substance. But that's for later. Right now, you need sleep. Just an hour. 2 if God is feeling generous. Then the manor house and the feast will demand you back. You lie down, close your eyes, feel Agnes settle beside you. Somehow, against the drumming of your own heart, you slip into a thin, troubled sleep. You get maybe 2 hours. Then it's back to the manor, your legs leaden, your eyes gritty as sand, your soul already weary. The fire at the miller's changes nothing. The Lord's feast must go on. The guests are arriving today. The kitchen is a new circle of hell. The air is thick with steam and shouting and the rich, maddening smells of cooking. Cook Marjorie is everywhere at once, her face the color of a boiled ham, threatening violence on anyone who slows the chaotic ballet. Dogs weave underfoot, snapping at falling scraps. And the food, God in heaven, the food. You have never seen such profligate, glorious waste. A whole boar, roasted, an apple in its jaws, its skin a mosaic of perfect, crackling blisters. Platters of small birds, roasted and refeathered to look as if they just landed on the table. Pies the size of cartwheels, their crusts glazed golden. Mounds of something white and creamy. Blancmange, you hear a servant call it. Fish in sauces that smell of wine and spices you have no name for. And bread. So much bread, loaves of it, white as a winter moon. And the waste, the beautiful, heartbreaking waste. Half-eaten joints of meat, their interiors barely touched. Bread rolls with a single, dainty bite missing. Fruit fondled by a lordly hand and then discarded. The table groans under more food than your entire village will see in a year. And you know, with a certainty that hurts, that half of it will be tossed to the dogs or carted to the midden. Your stomach cramps, a vicious twist. Back home, Mary has been asking, every night, Papa, when can we have meat? You tell her stories. Soon, when the hen lays more eggs, when the season turns. Lies, told to a 3-year-old who doesn't understand why her belly always feels hollow. They put you to work as a carrier. You are to take platters from the kitchen, up the stairs into the great hall, to the long table where Sir Richard and his world are gathered. You are not to look at them. You are to keep your eyes on the floor, set the platter down, step back, and vanish. But you look. Sir Richard sits at the head, in a tunic the color of crushed grapes. His wife beside him wears a necklace that catches the candlelight and throws it back in 100 tiny sparks. The guests are other nobles. Men with soft hands and carefully trimmed beards. Women with headdresses that tower like ship sails. They are laughing, their voices loud and loose with good wine. They talk of hunting, of a scandal at court, of the price of Flemish wool. Their voices are the voices of people who have never once counted spoonfuls of pottage or wondered if the flour would last the week. You set down a platter of roasted duck, its skin gleaming with fat. You step back, but you wait, a ghost in the shadows. One of the guests, a man with a silver-chased goblet, reaches for a drumstick. He takes a single, delicate bite, chews thoughtfully, then sets it aside on the edge of his trencher. A slab of stale bread that serves as his plate. Not to his liking. He turns to his neighbor and resumes his conversation. That drumstick, that single, discarded drumstick, with most of its meat still on the bone, glistening with juice. It could feed your family for a day. A feast in itself. You watch it sit there, cooling, forgotten, destined for the kitchen scraps or the hounds. And something in you doesn't just twist. It breaks. Not with rage, but with a profound, weary understanding. This is the order of the world. You are the soil they walk upon. Your hunger is irrelevant. Your children's hunger is a footnote. The feast rolls on for hours. Course after obscene course. Wine flows like water. A minstrel in the corner plucks a lute and sings of love and valor. Nothing about mud or empty bellies. The nobles eat until they are stuffed, then retire, then return to eat more. It is a ritual of power, a pageant of excess. Meanwhile, you carry platters. You haul wine casks that weigh more than your child. You scrub pots in the scalding kitchen while Marjorie shrieks about the texture of the gravy. At some point, a harried servant shoves a bowl into your hands. Scraps. A bit of bread sodden with grease, some gristly ends of meat, vegetable peels. You eat it standing in a corner, hidden by a barrel. It is more meat than you've had in months. You feel a shameful, desperate gratitude, followed immediately by a wave of sickening guilt. That night, walking home, your body finally gives up the ghost. You don't collapse, you just stop. You lean against a fence post at the edge of a field, stand there in the utter darkness, unable to command your legs to move. How long you stay, you don't know. Long enough for the cold to seep through to your bones. Long enough to start shivering violently. Long enough to think, maybe this is it. Maybe they'll find me here in the morning, frozen stiff. Would that be so bad? But some stubborn, stupid ember deep in your chest, refuses to go out. You push off from the post. One foot in front of the other. That's all it is. That's all it ever is. Agnes is asleep when you get home. So is everyone. You crawl onto the straw, curl into a ball, and sleep comes like a blow to the head. You wake to the sound of crying. Not the ordinary, hungry cry of a child. This is a thin, keening wail of pure distress that slices through the dark and coils around your heart. Agnes is already moving toward the sound. You follow, your brain still fogged with exhaustion, trying to place it. It's Edmund. Your son is huddled by the cold hearth, arms wrapped around his shins, rocking. His face is waxen. His eyes are too bright, glazed with a sheen that isn't sleep. Agnes touches his forehead and yanks her hand back as if burned. "He's hot," she says, and her voice is tight with a fear you know all too well. "He's burning up." The word hangs between you, unspoken but louder than any bell. Fever. The fear is cold and sharp, a knife in your gut. You've seen this before. You cross the room in 2 strides and kneel beside your son. "Edmund, Edmund, can you hear me?" His eyes find yours, but they don't focus. They're glassy, looking through you at some private horror. His lips move, but only a dry, rasping sound comes out. His whole small body is trembling, a violent, sickly shiver that has nothing to do with the morning chill. "How long has he been like this?" Your voice is tight. "I don't know," Agnes whispers, her own panic held in a fragile check. "He was fine yesterday, playing with Mary. He ate his bread." Her sentence trails off. "Fine yesterday, sick at midnight, dead by week's end. That's the rhythm of this world. That's how fast the Reaper can move." You scoop Edmund up. He's too light, his body burning through his thin nightshirt. "Get Martha, now." Agnes is out the door before the words have fully left your mouth. A blur of terror and purpose. You sit on the packed earth floor with Edmund in your lap, rocking him the way you did when he was an infant, murmuring nonsense into his sweat-damp hair. It's all right. You're all right. Papa's here. Lies. Beautiful, necessary lies. The others are awake now. Your mother watches from her corner with the grim, resigned expression of someone who has seen this script play out too many times. Agnes's brother hushes his own children, his eyes wide with the fear of contagion. Little Mary, confused and frightened, starts to cry. The cottage, usually a place of cramped warmth, feels like a cage closing in. The minutes stretch into an eternity. Finally, the door opens and old Martha shuffles in, her bag of mysteries clutched in her gnarled hand. She moves with a slow, deliberate calm that feels like a rebuke to your own frantic heart. She doesn't speak. She places a cool, wrinkled palm on Edmund's forehead, lifts his eyelids to peer at the whites, checks his tongue. "How long?" she asks, her voice like dry leaves. "Sometime in the night," Agnes says, back from her errand, breathless. No vomiting, no loose bowels, just the fever. Martha grunts. She rummages in her bag, pulling out dried herbs, a small clay pot, a pestle. The cottage fills with the green, astringent smell of crushed leaves and roots. She works with a quiet efficiency, mixing the powder with a little water from the bucket by the door. "Drink this," she says, holding the cloudy mixture to Edmund's lips. "All of it." He drinks, coughs weakly, drinks more. You watch, helpless. A father, strong enough to plow a field, powerless against a tiny, invisible foe. "Keep him warm," Martha instructs, her eyes missing nothing. "Make him drink water. Broth, if you have it. Anything. If he starts to sweat, that's good. If the shaking gets worse, send for me again." She starts to pack her things. Will he live? The question is out of you before you can stop it. The question you never ask because asking makes the unthinkable possible. Martha pauses. She looks at you, and her eyes are not unkind, but they are terribly old and tired. She has presided over too many thresholds. "Some do," she says, her words heavy with truth. "Some don't. We'll know more by morning." And then she is gone, leaving you alone with your son and the long, dark vigil. Agnes takes over. She is practicality incarnate in a crisis. She sends the others to the far side of the room, builds the fire until the cottage is almost unbearably hot, wraps Edmund in every threadbare blanket you possess. She sits beside him, a statue of devotion, spooning tiny sips of water between his parched lips, wiping his face with a damp cloth. You sit across the room and watch. There is nothing else for you to do. Your hands, tools for labor, are useless. Your strength, for once, has no purpose. You can only sit and wait, and listen to the ragged sound of your son's breathing, and pray to a God who seems to distribute his mercy with a blindfold on. The hours are a slow torture. Edmund sleeps, wakes with confused cries, sleeps again. His fever is a tyrant, rising and falling in cruel waves. Sometimes his skin seems cooler, and a fragile hope flutters in your chest. Sometimes he burns hotter, and the hope shrivels and dies. Agnes doesn't sleep. She doesn't eat. She just keeps her watch, her hand resting on his small chest, counting the too fast beats of his heart. Sometime past midnight he starts to sweat. A fine, oily sheen appears on his forehead and neck. Martha said sweating was good. You cling to that fact like a drowning man to a splintered board. Sweating means the body is fighting. Sweating means maybe, just maybe, the tide is turning. By the time the first gray light bleeds through the shutter cracks, the worst seems to have passed. Edmund's skin is cooler to the touch. His eyes, when they open, are clearer, though clouded with exhaustion. In a voice weak as a kitten's, he asks for water. The relief that floods you is so profound it buckles your knees. You have to grab the wall to stay upright. Agnes begins to cry, silently, her shoulders shaking, the tears she's held back all night finally breaking their dam. You go to her, wrap your arms around her, let her bury her face in your tunic. She smells of smoke and sweat and fear. "He's okay," you murmur into her hair. "He's going to be okay, for now." The unspoken words hang in the air. There will be other fevers, other long nights of terror. This is parenthood here. Love is just the sharp side of fear. The sun rises. The village stirs. Life, oblivious, continues. You should go to the manor. The feast's aftermath needs cleaning. Jeffrey will expect you, but you don't move. You sit by the hearth with your son sleeping in the circle of your arms and your wife leaning into your side, and you watch your daughter play quietly with a knotted piece of string. The pig snores. Your mother hums. For these few, stolen moments, the world outside, with all its demands and dangers, can wait. Eventually, Agnes falls asleep against you, her exhausted body finally surrendering. You don't wake her. You sit in the growing light, feeling Edmund's chest rise and fall in a steady, blessed rhythm. Outside, you hear the ordinary sounds of survival. The blacksmith's hammer, a barking dog, the late-rising rooster. Normal sounds, precious sounds. You close your eyes, just for a moment. The manor can wait a little longer. Just a little longer. You sleep through most of the day, a deep, heavy sleep of the utterly spent. When you wake, the cottage is quiet. Edmund is beside you, still sleeping, his breathing even. The fever has broken. Agnes is not there. Your mother sees you looking. She's gone to help the miller's wife, she says, not looking up from her mending. Took Mary with her. Of course she did. Even after a night of fighting death for her own child, she is out the door, carrying your daughter, to help another woman who has lost everything. Because that's what Agnes does. She holds the world together with her bare hands and never asks for thanks. You think about all the work she does that you never see. She is up before the dawn, coaxing the fire, stretching the food, mending by the last of the light, managing the fragile economy of your survival. Your work has boundaries, the field, the task, the sunset. Her work is the cottage, the children, the future. It never ends. And she owns none of it. Not the cottage, not the tools, not the pig. If you died tomorrow, she would be adrift, at the mercy of your family, the Lord, the church. In the eyes of the law, she is an extension of you, a vessel for children. She never speaks of this. What would be the point? Edmund stirs, opens his eyes. Papa. Hey, lad. You smooth his hair. How do you feel? Hungry, he says, and you almost laugh. Of course. After skirting the edge of death, his body's first demand is for food. Children are miraculous that way. Let's find you something. Your mother has saved some cold pottage. Edmund eats it with a voracity that brings a painful lump to your throat. You watch him and think of the discarded drumstick at the Lord's feast, of the impossible distance between that world and this one. Agnes returns near dusk, Mary on her hip. The miller's situation is dire. His cottage is a shell. His grain is ruined. His wife moves like a sleepwalker. Their children are scattered among neighbors. The village is doing what it can. A blanket here, a promise of labor there, but it's a drop in an ocean of need. The miller, Thomas, is a man broken. You've known him your whole life. Now you've watched him become a ghost in his own life. Agnes puts Mary down and goes to Edmund, checking him over with a mother's meticulous hands. He's better, you say, and she just nods, pulling him into a fierce, wordless hug. That night, dinner is thinner than water. Agnes gave some of your food to the miller's wife. She didn't ask. She just did it. You should be angry. You're all starving. But you're not. You understand. Because tomorrow it could be your cottage in ashes. Tomorrow you could be the one needing a neighbor's scrap of bread. That's the only safety net you have, each other. After the children sleep, Agnes sits by the fire. She's quiet, her hands resting on her belly. The baby moved, she says softly. Today, just a flutter, like a fish turning over. You move to sit beside her, put your hand over hers. She leans into you. I'm scared, she confesses, the words barely audible over the crackle of the hearth. My mother died having me. I never knew her. I know. I've seen her grave, but I never knew her. She takes a shaky breath. Every time I see her face, you have no words of comfort that aren't hollow. The truth is, you're scared too. Every pregnancy is a gamble, every birth a battlefield. All you can do is be there, and hope, and trust in Martha's herbs and God's whim. If something happens to me, she says, her voice firmer now, you'll take care of them, the children. Nothing's going to happen to you. But if it does, she looks at you, and her eyes are fierce. Promise me. You look at her, the girl you married, now a woman worn by work and worry, but still the strongest thing you know. I'll take care of them, you say. But you're not going anywhere. You're too stubborn to die. She lets out a small, choked sound that is almost a laugh. Stubborn. That's one word for it. You sit together in silence as the fire burns down. She falls asleep first, her head drooping onto your shoulder. You don't move. Outside, the night is absolute. Then, from far away, a sound rolls across the fields. A long, low, undulating howl. Wolves. They've been getting bold this hungry winter. The shepherds have lost sheep. Old William swears he's seen their eyes. Yellow coins in the forest dark. The howl comes again. Closer this time. Or maybe it's just your fear painting pictures in the dark. The cottage walls feel thin. The door feels like parchment. You think of your children, soft and vulnerable in sleep. You think of the pig, a walking meal. You think of the vast, hungry dark outside. But there is nothing to do. The wolves are out there. You are in here. All you can do is hope the door holds. This is the constant calculus of your life. Danger on all sides, and all you have is a prayer and a flimsy wall. You think of the miller in his ashes, of old Robert in his grave, of Edmund burning with fever. So much can go wrong. So much does. The world is not built for people like you. It grinds you down, takes and takes and takes. And yet you're still here. You hold on. That's the real work. The sheer, bloody-minded refusal to let go. The fire dies to embers. The cold settles in. But for now, Agnes's weight against you is warm. Edmund's breath is steady. Mary dreams nearby. This is your life. Hard, short, painful. But also these people. This fragile, fierce love. You close your eyes. The howling seems farther away now. Or perhaps you're just too tired to hear it. Spring arrives not with a bang, but with a slow, wet sigh. One morning you wake, and the air has lost its knife edge. It smells different, softer, damper, full of the promise of things rotting back into life. The hard frost that has silvered the ground every dawn for months is gone, replaced by a clinging mud that sucks at your boots. And there, in the sheltered spot by the church wall, the first brave shoots of green spear through the black earth. The village shakes itself like a dog coming out of the rain. People move faster, talk more, their winter sluggishness sloughing away. There's a new kind of work now, not the maintenance of survival, but the active gamble of creation. Today, for the first time since the autumn, you are working your own strips. 3 narrow bands of land scattered in the great open field, mixed in with everyone else's so no one gets all the good soil or all the stones. It's not much. It will never be enough. But it's yours to tend, yours to fail, yours to pray over. The plow feels different in your hands today. Heavier with hope, maybe. Old Brownie is hitched, looking as resigned as ever to another season of drudgery. The soil is cold and reluctant, clinging to the blade. Your shoulders burn with the familiar protest, your back singing its old song. Sweat finds its way into your eyes despite the cool air. But beneath the sweat and strain, there's another scent. The rich, dark, unmistakable smell of earth being turned. It's the smell of life itself. City folk don't know it. Lords in their halls don't know it. Only the people who push their hands into the dirt, who wrestle food from the very ground, know this smell. It's the smell of the only power you'll ever have. Birds are singing everywhere. Not the harsh caw of crows yet, but the intricate, hopeful songs of sparrows and finches returning. Their music fills the damp air, a celebration you understand in your bones. Edmund is with you today. He's too small to be of real help, but he's trying. He walks behind you, a small sack clutched in his hands, dropping precious seeds into the furrows you cut. His face is a perfect painting of concentration, his tongue poking out between his lips. He's doing it all wrong. clumping seeds together, missing spots entirely. You'll have to go back and fix it later. But you don't say a word. Let him feel useful. Let him learn the rhythm, the satisfaction of tired muscles at the end of a day spent doing something that matters. He'll have a lifetime to perfect it. Mary stayed back with Agnes, who is too heavy now with the baby to walk far, and whose back aches from the constant load. She didn't complain this morning. She never does. Just kissed you at the door and told you to be home before dark. The sun climbs, burning off the morning mist. Other villagers dot the great field, working their own scattered strips. John with his eldest son, Margaret and her daughters, their skirts curdled up. The blacksmith, taking a rare day from his forge to help his aging father turn the soil. This is the ancient dance. The whole village, side by side, bound together not by choice, but by the land and the relentless turn of the seasons. You squabble over boundaries, gossip about each other's lives, nurse quiet jealousies. But when the hail comes, or the fire strikes, or the Lord's demand is too great, you are one organism. Many hands, one purpose, survival. The crows arrive, a black council gathering in the bare-limbed trees at the field's edge. Clever, bold thieves. They'll have your seeds if you let them. Edmund takes up the job of sentinel, waving his arms and shouting wordless challenges. The crows retreat with offended cause, only to settle in another tree, waiting. They have all day. They have all season. Around midday, you stop to rest, sitting on the grassy bank of the furrow with Edmund. You share the hard bread and harder cheese Agnes packed. The food is meager, but it tastes like victory. Food always tastes better when you've earned it with your own sweat, when every bite feels like a tiny fist shaken at the specter of hunger. The sun is warm on your face, a gentle, forgiving warmth. You lean back on your elbows and look up. The sky is blue. Actually, honestly blue, for the first time in what feels like an age. All winter it's been a lid of gray, pressing down. Today, white clouds sail across the vast blue like ships on a calm sea. Edmund points. That one looks like a sheep. You squint. Maybe. That one looks like a pig. He giggles, a sound that cuts through the tiredness. Everything looks like a pig to you, Papa. You ruffle his hair. He eats like he's storing for hibernation, a growing boy with a bottomless pit for a stomach. You give him the larger share without him noticing. Papa, he says, his mouth full, will this be a good harvest? You look out at the field, the dark soil, the pale sky, the patient crows. I hope so, lad. What if it's not? Then we'll figure something out. We always do. He considers this, then nods satisfied. Children are good at that, taking your word as law, trusting that you have a plan, even when your only plan is to not die today. The afternoon is a long, slow grind. Plow, plant, cover, repeat. The rhythm becomes a meditation. Your mind goes quiet, occupied only with the feel of the wood in your hands, the resistance of the earth, the smell of life. This is the life your father lived, and his father, and his back through time beyond counting. A chain of bent backs and calloused hands, all facing the same sun, breathing the same air, fighting the same war against starvation. Most of them are forgotten. Their names are dust, but they mattered, because without their stubborn refusal to give up, you wouldn't be here. You are the product of 1,000 small victories over death, 1,000 narrow escapes. Your life is not a grand epic. No songs will be sung for you. You will live, work, love, suffer, and die, and the world will spin on as if you were never here. But you are here. Your hands are in the earth. The seeds you plant today will grow, and someday, God willing, your children will plant seeds in this same soil, carrying the chain forward. That's not nothing. In a world that tries so hard to make you feel like nothing, it's everything. The sun begins its long slide toward the horizon, painting the field in long golden shadows. Other families are packing up, heading home. Come on, you tell Edmund. Time to go. He's tired, dragging his feet, but he doesn't whine. Good boy, tough boy. He'll need to be. You hoist him onto your shoulders, his weight a familiar, welcome ache. He wraps his arms around your forehead, rests his chin on your hair, and sighs. Worth it. The walk home is a quiet parade. The village settles into evening. Smoke rises from chimneys in straight, thin lines. Doors open and close on the sounds of families reuniting. The light is that liquid gold that comes just before sunset, turning the thatch to honey and the mud to bronze. You pass the church, the graveyard beside it. Your father is there. Your baby sister, the daughter who lived 3 days. You don't stop, but you nod, just slightly. A message. I'm still here. I'm still trying. Agnes is at the door, Mary on her hip, both back from helping the miller's wife. Good day? She asks. Good day, you say, and you mean it. Inside, the cottage is warm, thick with the smell of thin pottage. Mostly water and a few sad vegetables, but it's hot and it will fill the hollow places. Edmund tells a breathless tale of chasing crows. Mary demands attention and then falls asleep in the middle of eating. Your mother hums. The pig roots contentedly in its corner. The fire crackles, painting moving pictures on the walls. Home. After the children are asleep, you sit with Agnes by the hearth. She takes your rough hand and presses it against the curve of her belly. Wait, she whispers. You wait. Then you feel it. A distinct, firm movement. Kick. A new life, strong and impatient, announcing itself. Strong, you say. She nods. Strong. You don't talk about the fear that lives in the space between those kicks. It's always there, a third presence in the room. But tonight you choose to ignore it. Tonight you just feel the life and you hope. The fire burns lower. Agnes leans against you, her weight a comfort. You think of the long winter, of Edmund's fever, of the miller's ashes, of the endless toil. And yet here you are, still standing, still together. That, in itself, feels like a miracle you didn't earn. Outside, the night is clear and star-pricked. An owl calls. A dog barks. The village exhales. You close your eyes. The seeds are in the ground now. The gamble is made. All you can do is wait and work and hope. For the first time in a long time, hope doesn't feel like a foolish thing. It feels like the only sensible option. You wake in the deep, silent dark. Not the morning dark, but the profound black of the true middle of the night, where you can't see your own hand before your face. This happens sometimes. The old folks have a name for it. The watch. That quiet hour or two between first sleep and second sleep, when the world is still and your thoughts are loud. Agnes breathes softly beside you. The children are still. The cottage is a landscape of shadows and soft sounds. Snoring, the rustle of straw, the wind's gentle complaint at the door. You lie there, staring at nothing, waiting for sleep to reclaim you. Your grandfather used to talk about the watch, said it was the best time for thinking, when the world wasn't crowding in. Said the saints did their praying then, when God was closest. Said the night held a wisdom the day was too busy to hear. Your grandfather said a lot of things. By the time you knew him, he was ancient, must have been near 60, a walking miracle. His body was a map of pains, his hands twisted from a lifetime of labor, his mind sometimes slipping its moorings, drifting between now and then. But he remembered the plague, not the one 40 years back, but the big one, the great mortality. He was a child when it came, 7 or 8, too young to understand, old enough to never forget. He told you stories. Late at night, when the fire was low and your parents slept, he'd whisper them like secrets, like confessions he had to make before he died. The bodies, he'd say, his voice a dry rustle. There were so many bodies. They piled them in the streets like cordwood. No one left to bury them. They dug great pits, threw them in by the dozens, covered them with lime and dirt. His eyes would go distant, seeing things you never would. The smell. You could smell the death from miles away. Sweet and rotten, like meat left in the sun. The sickness came fast, he said. A person could be hale at dawn and dead by vespers. First, the swellings. Buboes, they called them. Lumps the size of apples in the armpits, the groin, the neck. Black and hard and hot with poison. Then the fever, the vomiting, the bleeding from the eyes and the nose. There was no cure. The physicians with their strange bird-beak masks filled with herbs were just men in costumes. dying like all the rest. People went mad with it, he'd whisper. Some thought it was the end of days. They'd whip themselves bloody in the streets, thinking the pain would appease God. Didn't. Others blamed the Jews, said they poisoned the wells. Mobs burned whole streets, innocent people, and the plague laughed and took them too. He'd shake his head, the memory a bitter taste. Some just gave up, drank, danced, took what they wanted. If you're gonna die tomorrow, why not? The taverns were full even as the graveyards overflowed. And some ran, packed what they could and fled to the countryside, hoping the clean air would save them. Sometimes it did. Usually, the sickness traveled faster than their feet. His whole family died. His mother, his father, 3 brothers, 2 sisters. One by one over a single, endless summer, until he was the last one standing in a house full of ghosts. He survived because a neighbor woman, herself widowed and childless, took him in, fed him, hid him. He never knew why she chose him. Luck, he'd say at the end, always the same word. Just luck. The plague didn't care who was good or bad, rich or poor. Took who it took and left who it left. No pattern, no sense. Just the blind, indifferent scythe of fate. You think about that sometimes in the watch, the sheer randomness of it. How easily your grandfather could have been one of the bodies in the pit. How easily you would never have drawn a breath. The threads of a life are so thin, so easily snipped. The wind picks up outside, a low moan in the thatch. The cold seeps in, patient and insistent. But winter is loosening its grip. You can feel it in the air, in the way the dawn comes a little earlier each day. Spring is a reluctant beggar, but it's coming. In a few weeks, the soil will be warm. The world is waking up, indifferent to your suffering, relentless in its cycles. There's a cold comfort in that. You're part of something bigger than lords and tithes. The same sun that warmed your grandfather warms you. The same rain that fed his crops will feed yours. You're connected to the land in a way Sir Richard in his Manor will never understand. He owns it. You know it. Every dip, every stone, every sigh of the soil. Of course, spring means the real work begins. Backbreaking, dawn to dusk labor. Plowing, planting, weeding, praying for rain and sun in the right measure. Something will go wrong. It always does. But for now, in this quiet hour, you let yourself feel a prickling of anticipation. The worst is behind you. You made it. Your family made it. Edmund recovered. Agnes is strong. The new life within her kicks with purpose. The cottage stands. These are not small things. They are the only things. Your mind drifts to the festivals, the rare breaks in the monotony. Christmas, Easter, midsummer, harvest home. Days decreed by the church but claimed by the people. You remember last harvest home, the final sheaf of wheat cut, the whole village in the fields, the smell of ripe grain and dry earth. Then the feast in the Lord's barn, tables groaning with the bounty you'd sweated for. Real meat, fresh bread, ale that tasted like heaven. There was music, old Peter scraping his fiddle, and dancing in the dusty golden light of torch flame. Agnes was there, her belly just beginning to round. Mary was a laughing blur, Edmund trying to keep up. You sat on a hay bale, watching, and felt a feeling so foreign it took you a moment to name it. Contentment. Not happiness, that's too grand a word for your lot, but a deep, quiet satisfaction. A moment where nothing was wrong. You hoard these memories. You pull them out in the dark times, like a miser counting coins. They are proof. Proof that good exists even here. Proof that the world isn't only hunger and cold and fear. Your grandfather understood that. Despite everything he saw, everything he lost, he found reasons. He planted gardens, told stories, bounced giggling grandchildren on his bony knee. He laughed at things that weren't funny and cried at things that were. He lived, fully and stubbornly, until the day he stopped. Maybe that's the only secret there is. You wake up. You do what must be done. You look for the small, good things, and you try not to think too hard about the rest. Agnes stirs beside you. Her hand finds yours in the dark. Can't sleep? She murmurs, her voice thick with sleep. Just thinking. About what? Everything. Nothing. The past. The future. She squeezes your hand. Go back to sleep. Morning comes early. I know, but neither of you move. You just lie there, holding hands, listening to the wind and the soft symphony of your sleeping family. This is good, you think. This moment right here, the warmth of her, the sound of your children breathing, the knowledge that you are not alone in the dark. Morning will bring the Lord's field, the village work on the miller's cottage, the endless list. Your back will ache, your hands will crack, your stomach will growl. But right now, there is just this darkness, quiet, and the woman you love. You're 28 years old. That's not nothing. A lot of people don't make it this far. Your father didn't. Your baby sister didn't. Half the children you played with are in the churchyard now, taken by fever or accident or the simple, brutal struggle of being born poor. You remember their names. Thomas, who drowned in the mill pond. Little Sarah with the cough that wouldn't stop. William's boy under the ox cart. The list is long. Every family has one. It's normal. It's life. You don't think about it most days. What's the point? The dead are dead. All you can do is keep living. But in the watch, when your defenses are down, you feel the weight of all those lost lives. The empty spaces where they should be. And you feel, too, the strange, aching fragility of your own survival. Why you? Why are you still here? There's no answer. Your grandfather knew. Luck. Just luck. But you're here. Still breathing. Still fighting. Still stubborn enough to face another dawn. Maybe that's something to be proud of. Maybe in a world that's trying so hard to kill you, just surviving is the victory. Agnes's breathing deepens, slows. She's falling back asleep. Her hand is still in yours. You close your eyes. The darkness feels like a blanket now. The watch is ending. Second sleep is coming. Your grandfather was right. The watch has a wisdom, a stillness that lets you remember what matters. Family, home, the neighbors who share your burdens, the small kindnesses that make the weight bearable. The plague taught your grandfather that losing everything teaches you the value of everything you have left. He held tight to the people he found after, loved them fiercely, mourned them deeply. You understand now. You understand why he told you those stories. Not to scare you, but to remind you. Life is short. Life is fragile. Love what you have while you have it. You squeeze Agnes's hand one last time. Feel her squeeze back, already half in a dream. I love you, you think. You don't say it. You don't need to. After 8 years, 2 living children, 2 graves, 1,000 hardships, she knows. The wind dies down. The cottage settles into a deeper silence. You let yourself drift. Let your thoughts scatter. Let the heaviness in your limbs pull you down into the soft, welcoming dark. Tomorrow will be hard. Tomorrow is always hard. But you'll face it the way you face everything. One foot in front of the other. One day at a time. You'll wake before dawn, stiff and aching. You'll eat a thin breakfast and walk to the fields in the half-light. You'll work until your body screams and the sun bleeds out over the hills. And then you'll come home to this. To the smell of pottage and the sound of your children and the warmth of Agnes beside you in the dark. That's the rhythm of your life. Work and rest. Struggle and peace. Pain and love. Over and over until one day the pattern breaks and you join the others in the churchyard. But that day is not today. That day is not tomorrow. For now, there is just this. The quiet, the dark, the sound of your family breathing around you. And maybe, if you're lucky, there will be another moment like this one. A quiet hour, a warm hand, a reminder that the darkness always ends. Spring is coming. Hold on to that. The fragile piece of spring shatters with the sound of hoofbeats. It's not the Reeves' single nag this time. It's 2 of the Lord's men-at-arms, their helmets glinting dully under the cloudy sky, their faces set in the bored, hard lines of men carrying unpleasant news. They don't dismount. They stop in the center of the village, and one of them, a man with a scar cutting through his stubble, shouts for everyone to gather. A cold knot, different from hunger but just as familiar, tightens in your gut. Nothing good follows armed men. The village assembles, a silent, fearful flock. The scarred man unrolls a parchment, though none of you can read the symbols on it. He speaks them anyway, his voice cutting through the damp air. By order of Sir Richard de Ashford, and in the service of His Grace the King, he announces, a levy is called. All able-bodied men between 15 and 60 years of age are to present themselves at the manor in 3 days' time, equipped for travel and service. We march to the coast. A low, collective groan ripples through the crowd, quickly stifled. The coast. That means the French. It means war. It means the long, terrifying shadow that hangs over every peasant's life has just reached out and tapped you on the shoulder. The man continues, listing the expectations. Each man must bring his own weapon, a bow, a billhook, an axe. 3 days' rations. A blanket. The Lord will provide nothing but a destination and the enemy. You stand frozen. Your mind races, doing the brutal math of absence. 3 days from now is when your own fields need the final, crucial weeding. If you leave, the work falls to Agnes, already heavy with child, to your mother, to Edmund, who is still weak. The weeds will win. The harvest will fail. That's if you even return. The images your grandfather painted. The mud churned red. The screams. The men cut down like stalks of wheat. Flash behind your eyes. The men-at-arms wheel their horses and ride off, leaving a silence heavier than any noise. Then the babble of panic erupts. Women cling to husbands. Old men shake their heads. Young boys look torn between terror and a sick excitement. You find Agnes at the edge of the crowd. Her face is the color of ash. She doesn't speak. She just looks at you, and in her eyes you see the same calculation you just made, and the same bottomless fear. The next 2 days are a nightmare of grim preparation. There is no question of refusing. Refusal means the stocks, a flogging, or worse, being dragged there in chains anyway. You sharpen your old wood axe, the edge pitted and dull. It's a tool for splitting logs, not men. Agnes and the other women bake the hardest, driest journey bread they can, mixing in whatever grit they can spare. It will sit in your gut like a stone, but it will last. You try to show Edmund how to grip the hoe, his small hands overlapping yours on the worn handle. Like this, see? Just keep the worst of the weeds back. Help your mother. He nods, his little face solemn with a responsibility no child should bear. Will you be back for the harvest, Papa? I'll try, you say, and it's the most honest promise you can make. The night before you leave, there is no watch, no quiet contemplation. There is only a desperate, clinging intimacy. You hold Agnes in the dark, feeling the kick of the new life between you. A life you may never meet. You memorize the feel of her hair, the sound of her breathing. She doesn't cry. She just holds on to you as if she could imprint your shape into her very bones. You come back, she whispers, her voice fierce in the darkness. You hear me? You come back. We need you. I will. You lie because it's the only gift you can give her. Dawn comes cruel and swift. You stand with the other conscripted men of Ashford in the manor yard, a ragged, pathetic muster. John the miller's son looks like he might be sick. William the thatcher has a borrowed bow he clearly doesn't know how to use. There are boys of 15 trying to look brave, and men in their 50s whose backs are already bent with a lifetime of labor. You are not an army. You are a tax paid in flesh. Sir Richard emerges on the manor steps, clad in a padded jack, looking every inch the lord. He gives a short speech about duty, honor, and defending the realm. The words are empty sounds. You are not defending your realm. You are being sent to die for a strip of land you've never seen, for a quarrel between men who would not spit on you if you were on fire. The order is given. You fall into a loose, shuffling column. You take one last look back at the village, a blur of thatch and smoke, and at the small, distant figures of Agnes and the children, standing by your cottage door. Then you turn your face forward, and you start to walk. The days that follow are a blur of misery. The rain returns, turning the roads to sucking streams of mud. Your shoes, barely fit for the village, disintegrate. Your feet become raw, bleeding things. The journey bread is like chewing on clay. You sleep in ditches or under hedges, huddled together for warmth, the fear a constant, cold companion. You hear stories from men from other villages, whispered around pathetic, smoky fires. Stories of battles where peasants are sent in first to blunt the enemy's charge, of being cut down by arrows before they ever see a Frenchman's face, of lords riding down their own men in retreat. The fear curdles into a hard, cold lump in your chest. Then, on the 5th day, it happens. The column is trudging through a narrow, wooded pass. You are near the back, lost in a haze of pain and hunger. A commotion erupts ahead, shouts. The sound of splintering wood, panicked whinnies. A supply cart, overloaded and pulled by a spooked horse, has overturned on the muddy incline, blocking the path. Chaos. Men shout. The knight in charge of your contingent bellows orders that no one can hear. The column bunches up, a confused, struggling mass of bodies and mud. In the jostling, you lose your footing. Your worn shoe slips on the greasy mud, and you fall hard, your ankle twisting beneath you with a sickening pop. White-hot agony explodes up your leg. You cry out, but the sound is lost in the din. For a long minute, you lie there, the world a haze of pain and booted feet perilously close to your head. Then strong hands grab you under the arms. John and William, their faces etched with concern and their own fear. They haul you to the side of the path, propping you against a mossy tree. The knight rides up, his face thunderous. He looks down at you, at your already swelling ankle, at the tears of pain and humiliation you cannot blink back. He doesn't see a wounded man. He sees a broken tool, a piece of equipment that is now useless. Can you walk? He barks. You try to stand. The world swims, a nauseating wave of pain crashing over you. You collapse back with a gasp. His lip curls in disgust. Useless. He turns to John and William. You too. Get him back to his village. He's no good to anyone here. The rest of you move. Clear that cart. And just like that, your war is over. Not in glory, not in blood, but in the mundane, crippling grammar of a slipped foot and a twisted joint. The journey back is a different kind of hell. Leaning on John and William, hopping on one foot, each jolt sending lightning bolts of pain up your leg, takes twice as long. The shame burns hotter than the fever ever did. You are returning not as a survivor, but as a failure, a burden. But as the familiar fields of Ashford come into view on the evening of the 3rd day, a different feeling crowds out the shame. A desperate, clawing hope. You are alive. You are home. You see your cottage. The door flies open before you're even close. Agnes stands there, one hand on the frame, the other on her belly. She sees your hobbling gait, the makeshift crutch, the agony on your face. For a terrifying second, her face crumples. Then she runs, her pregnant body moving with a grace you don't understand, and catches you as you stumble the last few feet. She doesn't ask about the war, about honor, about anything. She just holds you, her body shaking, and you realize she is weeping. Weeping with relief. You are home. You are broken. The harvest is in jeopardy. The future is a cliff edge. But you are home. And for now, in the desperate grip of your wife's arms, that is the only victory that matters. The reckoning is not over. It has just changed shape. The fight is no longer on some distant coast. It is here, in this field, with this broken body, with this family that depends on you. And as you look over Agnes's shoulder at the green shoots pushing valiantly through the soil of your strip, you know you will fight it. Because giving up is the one luxury you have never been able to afford. The world narrows to a pinpoint of fire in your ankle and the solid, shuddering weight of Agnes against you. The shame of your return. A broken man, not a soldier, is burned away by the sheer, desperate fact of her arms around your neck. You are home. The word echoes in your hollow chest. A prayer answered you didn't dare speak. They get you inside, John and William, with a carefulness you didn't know they possessed. They deposit you on the straw pallet by the hearth, their faces grim with shared understanding. They don't stay for thanks. They have their own families, their own fears, now multiplied by your empty space in the levee's line. The door shuts behind them, and you are left with your family, your failure, and your pain. Agnes works with a frantic, focused energy. She sends Edmund for cold water from the well. Your mother, Her old hands surprisingly steady, helps cut away the sodden, ruined legging. The ankle is a grotesque, swollen parody of itself, blooming purple and yellow. Old Martha is fetched. She prods and pokes, her face impassive. Not broken, she grunts finally. Badly sprung, ligaments torn. It'll mend, but it'll be weak. And it'll take time. More time than you have. Her meaning hangs in the smoky air. Time. The weed-choked fields don't have time. The growing baby in Agnes's belly doesn't have time. The emptying flour sack has no concept of time. That first week is a new kind of torture. The physical pain is a constant, grinding companion, but it's the helplessness that eats your soul. From your pallet, you watch Agnes heave her pregnant body out the door at dawn with your hoe, Edmund trailing behind her like a tiny, solemn shadow. You watch your mother try to milk the goat, her arthritic fingers fumbling. You listen to Mary ask, over and over, "Papa's foot sick? You are the axle of this family, and you are shattered." The cottage, once a cramped haven, feels like a cage of your own uselessness. Agnes returns each evening caked in mud, her face drawn with an exhaustion that goes deeper than bones. She doesn't complain. She tends your ankle, reheats the pitiful pottage, forces a smile for the children. But you see the fear in her eyes when she thinks you're sleeping. The calculation is dire. The work of 1.5 people cannot sustain 5, soon to be 6. The math screams of failure. Then, on the 8th day, a knock comes. It's not the Reeve. It's Thomas the miller, the man who lost everything. He stands in your doorway, hollow-eyed, but standing. He doesn't say much. He just nods at your propped-up leg, then looks at Agnes. "My roof's on," he says, his voice rough from disuse. "Fields weeded. Yours is next." The next morning, he is there at your strip with his own hoe. He works in silence, a man battling his own ghosts, but he works. Then John's wife appears with her 2 strong daughters. They descend on your garden patch, their hands flying. William arrives in the afternoon after his own work and takes Edmund with him to check his rabbit snares, teaching him, giving Agnes a few less mouths to feed for a moment. It is not spoken. There is no grand agreement. It is the calculus of kindness, the same one Agnes understood when she gave away the barley. You are now the weak link in the village chain, and the chain for now holds. They cannot carry you forever, but they can shoulder the weight for a step. Because they know, they all know, tomorrow it could be their roof, their foot, their child burning with fever. Watching them from the doorway, a crippled king on his threshold, you feel a surge of something so fierce it chokes you. It is not gratitude. It is sharper than that. It is recognition. This fragile, stubborn web of mutual need is the real thing you defend. Not a king's title, not a lord's pride. This patch of earth, these people, this shared struggle to keep the darkness at bay for one more season. Your ankle slowly, grudgingly begins to mend. The swelling subsides to a dull ache. With a stick Martha carved for you, you can hobble. You are useless for plowing, but you can sit at the cottage door and mend nets, sharpen tools, shell the beans the women bring you. You can be the fixed point while Agnes orbits you with her relentless labor. One evening, as the fire burns low, she places your hand on her belly. The baby is a frantic, rolling presence now, demanding room. "Soon," she whispers. You look at her, at the lines of worry and wear on her face, at the fierce love in her eyes. You look at Edmund, asleep with his head in your lap, at Mary curled like a kitten by the hearth. You smell the sour straw, the wood smoke, the earthy scent of the sleeping pig. You hear the wind, your mother's soft snore, the infinite quiet of the sleeping village. This is it. This is your life. Not the storybook tale of knights and glory, but the epic of the soil and the stew pot. A life of endless labor, gnawing hunger, and the cold fear of what tomorrow brings. A life where joy is a fleeting visitor and pain is a permanent resident. A life of being owned, of being told, of being used. But it is also this: the rough wool of your son's hair under your hand, the solid warmth of your wife beside you, the knowledge that in this one room you are known. You are Edwin, father of Edmund and Mary. husband to Agnes, son of the woman who cheated death for 40 years. You are a link in a chain that stretches back into the dark and forward into a future you will not see. The baby kicks, a final, robust protest before sleep. Spring is here in full. The seeds you planted, against all odds, are green spears in the black earth. The gamble is laid. The sun will shine or it won't. The rain will come or it won't. You will harvest or you will starve. But tonight you have this: the fire, the quiet, the people you love, alive and breathing around you. You have survived the winter, the fever, the fire, the false start of a war. You are here. You are not happy. Happiness is for people with full bellies and futures not written in mud. But you are here. And for a peasant, in a world of endless, grinding misery, that is not just a fact. It is a defiance. It is a victory. Your eyes grow heavy. The last thing you see before sleep takes you is Agnes's profile in the firelight. The curve of her cheek, the determined set of her jaw. She is planting seeds for a harvest she may not reap, loving children who may not live to bury her, holding on to a man who is one stumble away from ruin. And she does not let go. Neither do you. Outside, under a sky dusted with the same cold stars that watched your grandfather and will watch your grandchildren, the world turns. It is indifferent to your joy, your pain, your love, your sweat. It does not care if you live or die. But you care. You get up. You work. You love. You endure. And for now, in the face of all that darkness, that has to be enough.